I found out my wife has been hiding her wealth to make sure I wasn't a gold digger, so I walked out and left her alone with her wealth. Before we get started, please click that like button. If you want, you could tell me where you are listening from. That really helps me build my account. Thank you. I, 35 meters, have been married to Samantha, 34 feet, for the past 10 years. When we got married, we both signed a prenup that seemed fairly simple and straightforward. If we were to separate in the first 10 years, each person would leave with only what they brought into the relationship. After 10 years, assets would be divided equally. Well, the 10 years are up, and Sam sat me down at the kitchen table to let me know what I was now entitled to. Enough money that I would never have to work again for the rest of my life. Neither would my children or my children's children. And that would be just my half if we were to divorce. She told me this with a very proud look on her face. Like I was a child who won the state spelling bee. Like I had won a contest, but it was a contest I was never aware of. She looked so proud, but I felt like I wanted to throw up. Let me back up. I met Sam on a train from LA to San Francisco. It was one of those scenic trips to admire the California coast. Of course, if you were to meet another single person in a place like that, there had to be some kind of chemistry. We had met in the first-class lounge. There was no way I could afford something like that on my own. It was a graduation present from my entire family. Growing up poor, we had absolutely no luxuries. Even going to college was a huge financial strain that would haunt me for years. But I was there to enjoy the trip and met a fantastic, beautiful woman to enjoy it with. I had been so busy telling her how much I appreciated this gift from my family, who had probably started saving years ago, that I didn't realize she must have money to be able to afford a trip like this too. But before I could ask, she told me it was a gift from her parents too. She didn't go into detail, and I was so wrapped up in my story that I just accepted her answer and moved on. But that should have been red flag number one. We dated for about 3 years before I proposed. It took me so long to save up for a ring that I thought she deserved. With student loans and rent I could barely afford, saving for a ring was such a challenge. We both worked in finance and earned about the same, but she did admit that she didn't have any student debt, so it was easier for her to pay her part of our shared expenses. Red flag number 2. When we got married, it was a simple ceremony. Neither of us wanted to waste money on a big expensive wedding after having just put a down payment on a house. However, her parents did help with the bulk of the expenses and paid for a 5-star resort honeymoon in Fiji. Red flag number 3. I want people to understand that looking back now, I do see these red flags and several more, but my wife and her family never treated me poorly in any way. They were also not the type of people to flaunt their wealth. They lived modestly and only spent money to enjoy their lives. Still, the fact that they were already retired at the age of 55 should have been another red flag. My issue is not with her or her family's treatment of me. I'm not really even mad that they hid their wealth from me. What makes me want to walk away is the years that I struggled financially. I had some really dark days, and they could have easily helped me out. Instead, they only offered moral support. For example, I lost my job suddenly after my company was aggressively taken over. Just one day to the next, I had no job. It took me 6 months to find another job, and by that time, I had spent all of my savings trying to keep my head above water. My wife didn't offer to help cover bills during this time. She did absolutely nothing to ease the financial burden. But to be fair, she was always supportive, and didn't complain that we didn't go out to eat, go shopping, or take any trips in those 6 months. She just accepted that we needed to tighten our belts until I found work again. I did eventually find another job with much better benefits and a much higher salary. But that financial stability was also short-lived. A couple of years ago, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. Luckily, it was caught early. I was paying for their health insurance, and they were going for regular checkups, and the doctor found a tumor. The copays were ridiculous, and I didn't have the money. Again, I drained my savings, and after that, I didn't even have enough money to pay my bills. This time, Sam offered to cover all the bills until my mom was finished with treatment. Sam said I could pay her back whenever I got caught up again. She said I should just focus on my mom's treatment and recovery. And again, I thought she was amazing for helping me through this difficult situation. And even last year, when the roof was damaged in a big storm, Sam asked me how I was going to afford to pay my half of the repair bills. This was the norm for our relationship, 50-50. And I thought it was a pretty fair deal. Now sitting here at the table, thinking about all the times I had struggled and suffered financially. She could have saved me from that torment. She could have snapped her fingers and made it all go away. I was physically ill. I got up, walked to the bedroom, and started packing a bag. She followed me and asked what was wrong. All I could manage to say was, all those times I needed your help. All those times. She tried arguing and saying she only wanted to make sure I was committed to an equal and fair partnership, that she didn't want me to become reliant on her money. Sam even tried to say she wanted to make sure she didn't emasculate me with her money. I just kept packing and shaking my head saying, all those times. When I had finished packing the bulk of my clothes, my laptop, and my important documents, I put everything in my car. She started crying and begging me to stay and talk about how I was feeling. I just removed the house keys from my chain and put them on the counter. The last thing I said to her was, I don't want anything from you. I closed the door and walked out. I just kept driving, not sure where to go or how to feel anymore. I just started planning in my mind I would have to start my life over again. I still had a good job and earned a great salary. I guess she was right in a way. She had taught me financial independence. She had taught me how to budget and save money. Growing up poor and now earning the money I was making now, I probably would have frivolously spent money on things I did not need. I probably wouldn't have been able to help my parents, but who knows now? Every time I think about it, I just think about how much I suffered when she could have easily helped me out. But I do have savings. I do still have a future. My credit is excellent, so I can lease or finance nearly anything I want. It's about time I took care of myself. I drove to the Four Seasons Hotel and booked a suite for 2 weeks. It would cost a lot, but that would give me time to find a nice apartment and get the place furnished. Give me some time to deal with the fallout of walking out of my marriage. The next morning, I got a call, not from Samantha, but from her father. He and I had always been respectful to each other, but were never close, so I had no idea what was about to come. He was definitely angry, but kept his composure. He tried to make the same arguments that Sam had made the night before. I sat there quietly and let him say his piece. Finally, at the end of his rant, he said I should come back home and allow things to go back the way they were. By doing so, I could avoid being publicly shamed for being a gold digger and sticking around only until the money came through. At that ... I finally spoke up. I said, I definitely don't want that. I promise I'll do the right thing immediately. He exhaled with relief, but I did not give him a chance to say anything else. I hung up. Because he was right. I am now entitled to a large sum of money, even if I filed for divorce. But I don't want to be labeled a gold digger. Not only for what others might think, but because that would blemish the years of suffering I had endured, and I would have to discard the man I had become. I already knew what to do next. I found the most expensive lawyer I could find, man named James Martinez. I told him the situation. I want to divorce my wife. She is very wealthy. I am entitled to half of everything, but I want nothing from her but 2 things. Half of the equity in our house. It is nearly paid off, and I want the money I had invested in it. Lastly, I want her to pay all my lawyer's fees and court costs, because she can afford it. If she agrees to those 2 conditions, then I will forfeit any other claims I might have, as long as she doesn't try to get half of anything from me, which is of course her right as well. James listened carefully, and since he would still be getting his pay, he only asked me once if I was sure that's all I wanted. I told him, that's all. He said the papers would be delivered to her by the end of the week. Sam tried to call and text every hour of every day. I did not respond to anything. Her dad tried calling again, Probably disappointed I had not gone back to her like he thought I would do. But when Sam was finally served the divorce papers, that's when I took her call. She couldn't believe I was just divorcing her. She asked if we could go to couples counseling and try to work through my feelings. She even said I could have everything, all of her money and assets if I would just come back to her. I told her very calmly that the betrayal I felt could not be worked out through some therapy sessions. It could not be bought off with any amount of money. I had struggled too much, suffered too many hardships, while she hid the safety net I really needed. She said that wasn't her intention. She tried to help me as much as she could without simply throwing money at the problems. I gave her an analogy. What if you had been very sick? Too sick to walk, to eat, to drink, to even go to the toilet? The whole time I took care of you, gave you medicine, cooked for you, cleaned you, did everything I could to help you get better. And after months, no, not months, years of this, you slowly got better and felt like yourself again. Now, picture I had had an instant cure the entire time, just sitting there. All you had to do was take a small drink and you would be instantly cured. How would you feel about me then? The phone went quiet. I think the weight of what I was trying to tell her sank in. Softly, almost too quiet to hear, she said, "I'm so sorry," and hung up the phone. Her father called again, and this time I knew what he was going to say. He threatened to hire the best lawyers money could buy, to make sure I got nothing. All I had to do was go back to Samantha, and I could start enjoying the wealth they have always enjoyed. I already had my response ready. I said, "You already hired expensive lawyers when you drafted the prenup. They made sure it was airtight. You made sure of that. Give me what I want, and I will just go away. Fight me, and I'll take it all." He hung up. A few days after I moved into my new place, James called me. He said they had agreed to my terms and the papers were already signed. I just need to come down to his office to sign my part and accept the check for the house equity. It was quite a large check, nearly $500,000. I didn't even realize our house had appreciated so much. That's okay, it wasn't for me. I gave it all to my parents so that they could retire and take care of themselves. As for me, I am slowly building my life again. I hang out with friends more. Try to eat dinner with my parents at least once a week. Go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week. And even play video games again. A hobby I had long since forgotten since adulting had hit me so hard. Samantha called me a few times and we talked for hours about the mistakes we had both made. We were not trying to reconnect. I think we both really wanted and needed closure. We finally stopped talking after a few months and went on with our lives. I don't know if I will date anytime soon, but if I do, I know transparency will be fundamental.